This is Extra Paycheck Podcast, episode number 35.
You're listening to Extra Paycheck Podcast, where you will learn how to build and grow your own successful online business. Now, here's your host, Alex Soul.
Welcome to yet another episode of Extra Paycheck Podcast. This is episode number 35, and today's special guest is Chris Cooper. Chris is an entrepreneur, a lifestyle and procrastination expert, and he will be sharing a lot of amazing advice, tips, tricks, and he will help you beat the procrastination and succeed in life, guaranteed, after listening to this week's episode. So enjoy today's show. Hi, Chris, and welcome to the Extra Paycheck Podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, Alex.
Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself and about your business. What is that you do to earn your income?
Okay. Greetings everybody out there in podcast land. I'm Chris Cooper. I'm actually originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I now live in the Atlanta, Georgia area. And what I do for a living is I am considered, I guess, what they would call a lifestyle and procrastination expert. I know that sounds fancy. But in layman's terms, basically it means that I help people get, as I would say, sugar, honey, iced tea done, if I won't say the bad word that really stands for. But ultimately, that's what I do. I'm a life and business coach, a peak performance coach, as well as a two-time #1 best-selling author, in addition to a trainer and a speaker, facilitator, and all those other kind of great and wonderful things. So I have a company called Execute Your Passion that I've owned and operated for 11 years now. It is a professional services firm where I focus specifically on on coaching, training, speaking work, and really helping individuals and organizations transform for the better. So I absolutely love what I do. I still have and in addition to that, I'm kind of that serial entrepreneur guy. So in addition to that, I still have an HR and human resources and information technology consultancy. So I do independent projects with a lot of Fortune 100 companies and all that kind of stuff to help them increase their overall efficiencies and effectiveness.
Oh, that's really awesome, man. And I think this is something that many people need, in our time and age, someone who would help them with fighting the procrastination, because this is something that's so common, and it's something that we slip into it without even noticing, especially, well, in my case, I would say, in my experience, when things start getting better for an entrepreneur, it's so much easier to just start slacking off.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So could you maybe give us some ideas at this point about, well, let's say fighting procrastination? How can we, implement a few easy things to help us move forward and to not be lazy?
Okay, awesome. Well, I think the first thing is this. First, you have to understand what procrastination is. And I think so many times it's a very fancy and sophisticated disease, as I would call it. And I call it a disease because I really believe that it's at the core, and like you said, sometimes it will just linger and you don't even realize you're doing it. So one thing that I do when I work with individuals is I help them first understand and accept the fact that you are a procrastinator. I mean, I introduce myself as, hi, my name is Chris, and I'm a recovering professional procrastinator.
Awesome.
And it sounds funny, so but it's true. And I realized, for me personally, all of the things that it was robbing me. It robbed me of relationships. It robbed me of business opportunities. It robbed me of all these different types of things. And that's the second part of it. So the first part is just identifying that you are one and acknowledging that it's something that we all do. And I'm going to tell you, 95% or more of the population does it. So don't feel like you are, that you're some kind of alien if you do it. We all do it. And all we have to do is learn how to manage it better. But the second piece of that, as I was just alluding to, is that you have to understand the cost of procrastination. See, so many times people don't make a difference or make a change because they don't know what it's really costing them. But when you look at all of the both tangible and intangible costs that are incalculable costs that are associated with it, you really understand that it's something that has got to be dealt with. And then the last part of it, I guess, you say you want some quick tips or something like that. You have to understand that, as I said, if procrastination is a disease, the only cure for it is action. I mean, that's just plain and simple. And I always talk about like these 6, quick steps to help people ultimately get sugar honey iced tea done or stop procrastinating. And they're very simple. I hope everybody has their pen and paper out. The first one is this. You have to acknowledge that a little step is still a step. Now, what that means is this. So many of us, I have so many clients every single year. I want to lose weight. I want to stop smoking. I want to, I want to do that. I want to start a multi-million-dollar business. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to do the other. And the crazy part about that is that at the end of the day, we always want to go from 0 to 100 real fast, right? But you have to understand that you have to acknowledge the process and follow the small steps along the way. So let's say that you want to go from being 300 pounds down to being 110. Well, you're not going to usually have that happen overnight unless you get surgery, of course. But, overall, what's going to happen is you have to I'll walk around the block one time. And then I'll build up to running around the block. And after running around the block, then I'll get into a consistent, diet schedule, and what I'm eating as well as what I'm doing is from an exercise perspective. And then basically you're able to kind of realize that, hey, a small step is still a step, and celebrate yourself along those small steps. So that's the first part in order to really annihilate this thing that we call procrastination. The second cure, I would say, is this, absolutely this, and we've heard this millions of times, so I'm going to say it again. You've got to make plans. See, the problem with so many of us, you've heard the old adage, failing to plan is planning to fail. And it's true. If you don't actually make a plan or understand exactly what you want, and I'm going to say this, I'll say it one step further, not only what you want, but why you want it, then you're able, once you understand those two things, now you're able to be in a position to make an effective plan. One that you're definitely going to follow through. So understand a little step is still a step. That's number one. Number two is you've got to make plans. Number three is this, and this seems like very simple and very intuitive, but this is where I would say 99.99% of the population falls off. The third thing you got to do is you've got to follow through. Now, you made this plan, but you actually have to follow through with it. And so many of us, we have, I remember growing up and my grandmother always said that the road to hell is linked with all or full of, lots of things of good intentions. So you may have all the intentions in the world and still not get to the destination that you want to get to. So you've got to follow through. And the next 3 steps that I'm going to show you will help you with that follow through process. The number 4 thing is you got to tell somebody. Now, this is the accountability piece. And let me tell you something. If you are a person that waits to the last minute to do everything, let's say something in regards to work, don't go to your coworker or your business partner that's worse off than you. You don't go to the bar with the guy that's trying to quit drinking. I mean, just think about these things, and I know it sounds so, elementary and rudimentary, but at the end of the day, so many people, Alex, they do it all the time, and they surround themselves with individuals that are worse off than them, and that's not going to help you. So you got to tell somebody and have an accountability partner or coach, or someone there that's going to really help you do the follow through, which was number 3. That's based on the plan that you made, which is composed of all those little steps that will add up to creating some lasting change. Then the 5th thing is you got to have a due date. Now, notice I did not say the word deadline. I said due date. And I don't like deadline. And it's just me. It's a personal thing for me. But the root word of deadline is dead, right? That's so morbid, right? So I don't want to be morbid. And I think for so many individuals, and I come from a technology background, I didn't go into that, but I come from a technology background where I was project manager and program manager, and all we talk about what's the deadline, what's the deadline, what's the deadline, what's the deadline, and it's just a bad connotation I have with it. But I do like the word due date, because any woman that's had a baby or anyone that knows a woman who's had a baby knows that sometimes they miscalculate it. Sometimes it has to be pushed up. Sometimes it has to be pushed back. Oh, but Alex, guess what? That baby is indeed going to come eventually. Yeah. So have a due date. And then the 6th thing I would say is this, and this is huge. You've got to keep your goal in sight. Whatever you want, you've got to see it on a daily basis. See, I have a vision board that's right above my desk, even now as we chat. that reminds me of why of what I really want, and seeing it over and over again. And I've developed literally a mental anchor or a mental connection. So that way I know exactly what I'm going after. So what I say, we talk about, this, procrastination being a disease, and the only cure for it is action. You got to understand those things I just said, that a little step is still a step. You got to make plans. You have to follow through. You got to tell somebody. You have to have a due date, and you have to ultimately keep your goal in sight. And I'll deal with one more thing right before you ask me the next question. And this is the whole thing about a lot of people are still in denial about being procrastinators. And I started out with that whole thing of I'm Chris and I'm a recovering professional procrastinator. So, and these people are usually very type A individuals. They're usually super achievers. They're usually the overachievers. They're really successful. As you said, the more success you get, the more you may lean into procrastination. And lots of times what happens is this: they tell themselves the lie that I work best under pressure. And I think, Alex, that is the biggest lie on the planet. No one works best under pressure. Come on, man. What happens is this: you wait to the last damn minute to do something, but this is the difference. Because you have a standard of excellence, because your name is going to be attached to it, because individuals are depending on you. Those are all the reasons why you get it done in the clinch time. That's why. It's not because you work best under pressure. It's because whatever you have to gain is so powerful, whether it's, like I said, your own standards, the excellent spirit that you operate in, or anything else. That is what really drives you. So let's stop telling ourselves that we work best under pressure. No, we wait to the last minute and we show up. Why? Not because we work best under pressure, but because the standard that we have for ourselves and whatever the product of the work that we produce is so much more powerful than, quote unquote, the limited amount of time that we have to complete it in. Does that make sense?
Yes, really awesome stuff, man. Thanks for sharing all of that.
No problem.
And I'd like to come back for a little bit to step number 5, as you call it, the due date. Well, first of all, not calling it the deadline, that really made me think of older stuff from Tony Robbins. Yep. When he would say, for instance, when you're quitting smoking, right? Don't envision yourself like, later on when you've quit smoking, don't tell yourself, I have quit smoking. He's like, tell yourself, I am now a happy and healthy non-smoker.
Yep.
Right, so that's also another thing when just a different word changes the whole perception of what it is, because you don't want to be a quitter, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, so coming back to that, so let's say you establish your due date and you work really hard and you work smart to achieve whatever you want to achieve by the due date, and it hasn't happened. It just didn't work out. You did not. You didn't finish it by the due date. And that creates frustration. And sometimes it has happened to me as well that when that happens, you kind of start slacking off on that specific subject because you go, well, look, I wasn't even capable of finishing that simple task by that due date. How do you kind of forgive yourself, or, what do you do in that case?
Okay, great question. And I'm so glad you brought up Tony Robbins, because I didn't share this with the listeners, but I'm actually a Tony Robbins peak performance coach as well. So of course I've been well trained in all of his technologies, et cetera. And I still operate in that capacity to this day. And one of the things that I would say is this: Tony talks about success is 80% psychology and only 20% mechanics. I'll say that again. 80% psychology and only 20% mechanics. So the example that you gave me is a classic example of that, right? The mental, psychological toll that it takes on you of not, quote unquote, meeting that due date, even though you may have had the tools and stuff in place to help you with that. So one thing is this, and I'm not telling people to be lenient on themselves, but I'm telling individuals to embrace your humanity. One of the biggest things that I had growing up, I grew up, like I said, in Philadelphia, and my mother had me when she was very young. She was only 16 years old. And my family was very adamant about the fact that I would grow up and I would become a statistic and I wouldn't do anything. But she knew, literally, when she was carrying me, she told her that God said that I would one day grow up doing exactly what I'm doing right now. So clearly she was right. But and we love her for that. Hey, Mom, love you. But one thing that's big, like you said, is that many times I've been in that predicament as well, where I've worked hard toward a particular goal. I really wanted to accomplish something by a certain date, and it doesn't happen. So in that moment, there's a few things that you can ask yourself. Number one, you have to ask yourself and be honest with yourself and say, did I give it everything that I could to get to this point? And we know the answer to that. I know people say, well, I don't know how to say. No, you know, in your gut, you feel it. You know whether you gave it your all or not. If you gave it your all and you still didn't meet the date, that's when you ask yourself the question, okay, what can I do differently this time in order to be able to get to where I want to ultimately be? Because guess what? Just because you miss a due date, the earth is not going to end. Things are not, I mean, the world is not going to come crumbling down just because you miss this one thing. But I think that many times, especially as entrepreneurs, we do that. We say, oh my God, my life is over. Oh, I didn't become a millionaire by the time I was 35. Oh my God, it's hard. No. Guess what? Do you know the average age of a millionaire is actually in their 50s? Like, you have time. So I think that people need to really, number one, love themselves first and most. And by loving themselves first and most, it gives them the opportunity to accept the fact that, yes, Chris Cooper might be super, but he doesn't have to be Superman. Because I'm going to tell you, at the end of the day, this is one of my first mentors taught me this. People don't want superheroes. They want real people. They want individuals they can relate to. They want people that have failed. They want people that have been through different types of things. So if I'm talking to one of my clients who had a due date, and I have this happens all the time, you know, they'll say, well, I wanted to have this done. I had one today. He wanted to finish a program. I think the due date, was like 3 weeks ago. So I asked him, I said, okay, well, let's go back to this. Let's go back to the reason. What did you really want? He wanted to finish the program. I said, well, why did you want to finish this program? And he's like, because I wanted to finish it. I'm like, no, that's not good enough. You'll never be able to read any type of due date if you're only going into it with the fact that, yes, I wanted to do it. There has to be something more in there. So then I started working with him and really getting him to understand, hey, I'm doing this program. It was a program it was actually one of Tony Robbins' programs. It was a program all about time management, time of your life. And, I was like, well, why do you want to finish this program? He's like, because I need to get my time back. I said, well, why do you need to get your time back? He's like, because my family needs me to spend more time with them and not be working all the time. I said, excellent. I said, and how are you going to feel when you've actually gotten your time back? He's like, I'm going to feel accomplished. I'm going to feel happy. I'm going to feel fulfilled. And we just kept going down this path. And I kept asking him, and what else? And what else? And what else? Making his why so powerful, so juicy. See, the why is what really drives us. So if ever you miss a date, guys, figure out why you didn't make the date and develop a connection to why it's got to be a must. Why must this actually happen? Why is it mission critical that hell or high water, you are going to march down this path and make some awesome and incredible things happen and get exactly what you desire? So ask yourself, to be honest, number one, like I said, did I do everything I possibly could to get there? And we'll know the answer. If you did not, okay, why do I want this particular thing? And after you've identified the why, then you brainstorm and say, okay, well, what are some things I can do differently? What are some things that I can do that can assist me as I have a new date? And you got to create a new date. Guess what? I understand this. I'm not being, I'm not being facetious, but to be honest, the real sin, I think, in procrastination is that it's very presumptuous. It's presumptuous to say that, hey, I'll be around tomorrow or the next day, so I can push that off to the next day. No, tomorrow's not promised to any of us. So from that perspective, when you're setting up these due dates and you miss one, yes, you may not get to the quote unquote new due date, but you need to ask yourself, what can I do today? What type of connection can I get to a why that's strong enough? And Alex, you know this probably as well, is that most of us will do more for other people than we will for ourselves. So if you're able to develop a connection with something more powerful than yourself, that's going to benefit more than yourself, that is going to be a great driving force toward being able to accomplish those things. So don't be so hard on yourself. Understand and be honest with yourself as to how you showed up, right? Attach it to a true why, reset the date, go for it, and find some type of accountability structure, whether it's a person, whether it's a coach or an accountability partner or what have you, to help you so that way you won't miss those dates again. Does that make sense?
Yes, really awesome stuff, man. Thanks for sharing that. That makes a lot of sense. And I'm pretty sure a lot of listeners, well, I hope a lot of listeners will take it as something to live by in a way. If you don't achieve something that you wanted to achieve, or you didn't meet your due date, don't beat yourself and quit everything you're doing, but try to figure out why it has happened in such a way.
Yeah.
And as you said, maybe rethink your why. You have to know your why. You have to know why exactly you're doing it, why you want to achieve a specific thing, and why do you want to achieve it by specific date.
Right.
It helps moving forward, and I think it helps, just doing it better and meeting the due date if you know exactly why. And there you go.
I love it.
All right, Christopher, thanks so much for sharing that. And I'd like to go a little bit back about you personally.
Yeah.
Could you tell us, like, how did you get started as an entrepreneur, when it happened, and what was maybe some kind of a breaking point that put you, that kind of pushed you into the entrepreneurship world instead of a regular 9 to 5, as the society tells us to get.
Oh, what an amazing! I love it. I love that. As I said, my background is technology. So I actually went to college. I was very fortunate. I got a scholarship. And honestly, I couldn't afford college. So that was the only way I was going to be able to go. And I was really good in math and science. So I got a scholarship and I studied mathematics at Morehouse and industrial engineering at Georgia Tech. And I got 2 degrees in 5 years, was part of this program. And because I was good at math and science, everybody said, Chris, you need to go work. And you need to work in one of those fields, like as an engineer. And it made sense because engineers made money, right? And I wanted to make money. So I actually decided that I didn't want to do hardcore engineering. I actually went into consulting. So I went into consulting, management consulting, specifically with Deloitte and Touche was the first company I worked for. And as I was working, it was amazing. I was learning, I was growing, I was traveling every week. I was so many frequent flyer miles and all that kind of great. I was in front of clients and I was presenting and all this other kind of stuff. So it was great. And then I got laid off. September the 11th happened and everything went bad and I got laid off. And at that point, it was a decision time for me. And I knew that I still had some skill set. And I knew that I was really good at networking. I was really good at building relationships and maintaining relationships. So through that, I was able to secure a position with another company, the Home Depot, corporate office right here in Atlanta, Georgia, which was great for me. So that was a great opportunity for me to learn more about project management and all that kind of stuff. And then I had some issues with a boss there and got fired. That happens to people too. So I had been laid off. I had been fired. And I said, I need to go back to school. I said, something has got to change. This working thing is for the birds. And I had always wanted to go to business school anyway. So I was able to get into a really good program at NYU, New York University. And it was like an executive program. So I was able to do that while I was still working. So at that time, I had transitioned from, of course, after Home Depot to become the youngest senior manager ever with a major Fortune 100 company, now AT&T. They used to be called Singular Wireless, that part of the family. And I had the quote unquote essential, amazing job, Alex, that everybody would say. I was making the 6 figures. I was very young, 24, 25 years old. I was the youngest senior manager ever, got promoted 3 times in 18 months. It was great, right? To everybody but me. Because I was working 18-hour days, 6 days a week.
Wow.
And I said, oh my God, I'm doing all this for somebody else. And just to put a pin in that story for 1 second, when I was young, probably maybe 7, 8, 9 years old, my grandmother, I love her so much. She saw something in me. And she told me back even when I was 7, 8, 9 years old that, hey, baby, I don't think you were meant to work for anybody. And she saw that entrepreneurial spirit. And I had always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't know what to do or what I was going to do or how I was going to do it or what have you. And I have this quote unquote great job and, and everybody's depending on me. And I'm like the whiz kid and, all this other kind of stuff, but I hated it. So actually, through much prayer and all that kind of stuff, I actually took a big leap of faith. And on May the 20th, 2005, I stepped out of corporate America. And when I stepped out, I was very strategic. As I told you, I've become somewhat of a serial entrepreneur. So I knew a lot of the things that I used to pay people to do for me when I was in that executive role, I could do some of those same things that I pay people to do. And I could make some pretty good money at it. So as I was starting my company, Execute Your Passion, which is my coaching, training, and speaking company, I was still I was also teaching at Emory University through their Center for Lifelong Learning. And also I was getting, fine-tuning my soft skills because that was really the thing that I had. I was in technology, but I had the softer skills. And one I'll never forget, I went to a conference back in 2008 my first mentor, James Malinchak, it was for college speakers because that's why I started out with speaking. And I was wanting to write my first book, and my first book was going to be its motivational autobiography, all about Chris Cooper, Alex. It was going to be a #1 bestseller. I tell you, I just knew this was going to be the best thing since sliced bread. And he looked at me and he was like, well, that's great and that's wonderful that you want to do it, but why would somebody buy the book if they don't know you?
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Stop for a second. And he taught me a very important lesson, Alex. And this is one of the best business pieces of advice that I've ever received. He said, Chris, you've got to give people what they ask for, not what you think they need. And in that moment, I had to think about, I've been speaking at schools a little bit after I stepped out of corporate, right? I still had to, and the other piece of that, I'm sorry, is that I did my independent IT and HR consulting while I was building the other part of my business, which I am a big fan of. I am not the entrepreneurship guy that says, just go ahead and quit your job and your dream will feed you. No. You have to be able to have money to infuse in your business. And you have to, and especially for me at the time, I was married. I had 2 little boys. Well, I had 1 little boy at the time. My other son hadn't been born yet. But, I have responsibility. So I couldn't just quit my job and say, hey, throw caution to the wind and my dream will feed me. No, I have to build my dream so that it can feed me. But guess what? Jobs, as I look at them, were always resources. It gave me the income for the ability to invest in myself, to get this self-education, to get the personal development, to get the tools, the strategies, the marketing, whatever I needed in order to make my enterprise grow. So from that perspective, basically, I did that. And I wrote my first book, the Achieve Your Dreams book, and it was based on a poem that I did because every time I spoke, people always wanted this poem. And so I literally wrote the book about the poem, and that was one of the best things that I did. And then that kind of catapulted me. I did some college tours, spoke at schools all over the nation and Canada as well. I'm actually all over the world. I went to South Africa and some other places too, in London. And that just opened up so many opportunities for me to understand that, guess what? Oh my God, people really want to know what I know. Like, I have valuable information that people will buy or invest in or listen to, and I can actually make a living with this. And I'm telling you, Alex, that was like a major aha moment for me. And it's honestly why I decided to kind of go this track of becoming somewhat, as I would call it, like the infopreneur/mediapreneur, where you're able to kind of mix these skills from information, because as you know, information is indeed powerful. And it's actually even more at this point in day and age, it's like even more powerful than money itself. If you have the information, people are willing to pay for that information. I mean, you can look at everything from presidential campaigns to all the consumer stuff. I mean, even Facebook, they're tracking our buying habits, our interest levels, so they can sell stuff to us through vendors. I mean, like, just information is so powerful. And if you can find a way to monetize either the experience with information or that information, I think it's so powerful. So that was kind of my thing. And I've been through it all. I've been through the bottom, I call them the bottom experiences, where I was like, I don't know, foreclosure notices, repossession. I mean, you name it, I've been there. I've seen the high points of entrepreneurship when things were flowing and everywhere in between. And not only just in entrepreneurship, but also even my personal life. I'm divorced now. So I've had the top of the marriage experience and the rock bottom piece. I know what it's like to co-parent and deal with 2 amazing, incredible boys who are gifts, who are, as you said, my why. The reason that I do everything is because of Blake and Christopher. And it's so incredible when I look back at this whole entrepreneurial journey, for me, some 11 years now, it's just given me so much tenacity, not only for life, but also, I think even better than that, the biggest sense of appreciation and gratitude that you can ever imagine. And that to me means more than anything else. And because of that, I know that I will forever be blessed and successful, because my business is run from service. I am a servant. That's what I know I am. I just get paid for serving people, but that's what I do. I serve people in some way, whether it's something that I say or they heard me on stage or they're working with me on one-on-one. I help people do what I do now. So people that want to be coaches, trainers, speakers, authors, I have an amazing event called the Expert Industry Bootcamp, where I really put them through 3 days of really doing it, followed with a year-long mastermind program for those individuals that really want to take it to the next level. So, Yeah, so that's what I do now, man. So my entrepreneur journey, it's been bumpy. I say I've been through in corporate. I was I call myself a person that survived the corporate trilogy. I've been fired, I laid off, and I resigned. So I've done everything you could in corporate, and I've learned, and I won't say everything there is to know about entrepreneurship, but I've learned a hell of a lot, through all of these different types of experiences.
Yeah, I love this story, man. Really, really amazing stuff. And it just made me remember that quote from Albert Einstein when he said, "Try not to be a man of success, but rather a man of value."
Absolutely.
And I think this could apply to pretty much anything that we do as entrepreneurs or that we want to eventually do. And something you mentioned, to don't try to give people what you think they want, but try to give them what they need and what they're already asking for.
Exactly. And that's huge. That's huge.
Go ahead.
I was saying that's huge, and I think that's where we go wrong. I coach entrepreneurs and different individuals all the time, and and people are so damn married to their ideas, and it's okay. I mean, it's okay that I love passion. I want you to love what you do. I want you to be all that, all about it. But guess what? If that's not selling, you're not going to be in business. You got to stop, and we've got to sometimes put even the things that and I've even helped some of them shift some of those things that they thought would be great business ideas as more of a nonprofit idea. So it's a way they can ultimately give back through that. But if you need to find, as I was taught, the fastest way to the cash is learning what people are asking for and what people want, not what you think they need. And the only way that you can find out what they're asking for and what they need is ultimately, guess what? Asking them. It's simple. Do a survey, ask a question, find out exactly, hey guys, I was thinking about this. What do you think about this? What would you pay for this? Just really getting in the belly of it. I think we've, Alex, I'm getting on a tangent a little bit. I'm sorry, but I feel like technology has helped us, but it's also hurt us so much. Because I think that we've become, especially with from a social media perspective, we've gotten so interconnected through technology that we don't have those one-on-one conversations with people anymore. We want to direct message them or text them or what have you. But it's amazing what you can actually learn from a conversation like we're having right now that you wouldn't get just from an email exchange between the two of us, right? Or you wouldn't get that just through a text message conversation between the two of us. So I think that, especially as entrepreneurs, we got to, especially if you're just starting or even if you're looking to take your business to the next level, you got to get in with your customer. Find out exactly what they want, what motivates them. What are they really looking for? Not necessarily what you want to give them, but find out what they really want.
Yeah. Totally. That does make a lot of sense. And as you mentioned, I think this is where most of us go wrong. That's not where we put our efforts and concentrate our thoughts on. We just think that we find the next best thing there that's going to sell incredibly well just because we think it's good. But chances are, if you didn't do your research properly, didn't ask people, chances are that's not what they really
exactly
need,
exactly, and what they're going to pay for.
Yeah, and also the industry has been changing a lot, and this is something that entrepreneurs, especially if you're an online entrepreneur, I think you have to adapt really quickly, and you have to understand that and follow it, because I know that before 2009, I think the big recession in the US happened in late 2008, right?
Yeah.
And
that's right.
Before 2009, I was selling a lot of stuff from ClickBank as an affiliate, and it was mostly information products. But it was anything. It was like courses about woodworking and a whole bunch of different stuff. And people were snagging it like crazy. People were buying it. Hey, $50, $60, who cares? I'm just gonna buy that ebook. Then some company, I don't remember who it was exactly, they did a research and they figured that 8 out of 10 people would not even open that ebook ever. They would just buy it thinking, well, one day when I want to make a chair, I'll use it, right?
Right.
So basically it was a waste of money for people in a way, because nobody really read those ebooks. Really, really small percentage of people actually used them and did something, something good with that. However, by 2009, it kind of dried up, that whole business, because after the recession, people in the US, most specifically, really started thinking and, kind of deciding, do I really need it? Do I really need to buy this book on woodworking? And if you have, you're scared that there's going to be no job and no income, and you start thinking, well, chances are I'm not going to spend any money to buy wood to make the chair, right?
Exactly.
So then you're like, well, yeah, I'd like to have that book, but I'm not going to spend $60 on it because it's not needed right now. And a lot of people, they really got burned in the whole affiliate marketing world because they kept pushing those products and spending money on advertising when the buyer base dried up. That's not what people needed anymore. They needed something different. And, a lot of us, I would say affiliate marketers, didn't follow with that, didn't understand that at the moment, and spend the next few years, being all puzzled, like why is my business dying? Why nobody's buying these kind of ebooks? So yeah, once again, you have to stay updated, and going back to what you've said several times by now, understanding what people really need and giving that to them, serving, giving them that value that they require, not something that you think they should be buying.
I love it. Yeah, and it's so true. And it seems, and I think I really want the listeners to get this, because it seems so simple, but it's one of the things that can literally be the game changer if you really hone in the right way. And I'll tell you, I'll give you a personal example. Of course, as most people probably know, this world of coaching has exploded, right? Everybody wants to be a life coach. Oh, I'm a life coach. I'm like, really? Are you?
Totally.
Not only that, but everybody thinks they can be one because they think it's easy. Well, I always give people advice. So I can be a life coach. And there's so much more to that. And of course, I have a different perspective because of the level of training and stuff that I've had and all that kind of great stuff. But one thing that I realized with that was that was an opportunity. Because everybody wants to do it. Somebody needs to help them figure out how to ultimately do it, right? Especially an effective way, right? So that was part of it. And and for me, this is exactly what I did, Alex. So many individuals kept asking me the same questions over and over again. Bingo, entrepreneurs, that is a huge bingo. When people ask you the same questions over and over again, that is like a sign that you may have something on your hands. And the same questions that I kept getting over and over again, Alex, was, how do I become a speaker? How do I become a coach? How do I become a trainer? How do I write books like you, Chris? How do I get on TV? How do I, everybody wanted to know all these different types of things.
And I think it's a very legit question, because just before you continue, right? Could you just mention some of the TV shows and networks that you've been featured on?
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I've been on ABC, CBS, Fox, NBC. I've had something that was on CNN before, MSNBC, and then also on some publications and stuff like that too.
Yeah, so you're like a superstar, I really do understand when you are when you're a bestseller and you've been featured on. Well, these are the biggest channels and the biggest networks in the US, and some of them worldwide. So I do understand why people would ask you that. Right. So let's go back since I interrupted you. Yeah. So people asking you all these questions.
They kept asking the same questions over and over again. And Alex, there's no way possible for me to have a one-on-one conversation with all these people. I can't. It's impossible. Even if I had the time. And, and I think that's the other thing that's dangerous as entrepreneurs sometimes, is the dreaded, I want to pick your brain. And I'm like, pick my brain? What am I going to be left with? Don't pick it. Leave it alone. That hurts. So I give people the opportunity to basically, so I put a post on Facebook. It was very simple. I said, okay, guys, I keep getting asked the same questions pretty much daily about how to become a coach, trainer, speaker, author, da-da-da. What if I was able to come up with an event or an experience or a training program where I would be able to really uncover what I've learned in I guess now it's over a decade of information that I've been doing it, and then also probably a decade worth of information that I was studying it before I did it. So I said, who will be interested? I said, all you have to do is like this post. I'll reach out to you directly and I'll give you the details. And lo and behold, that's how I created my expert industry bootcamp. It came literally from me just putting it out there, asking people would they be interested in it. And I'm getting prepared for my next one, actually, this upcoming March 2016. And I've already had my first class to go through as far as a year-long mastermind program. And that's why I created that, because I said, oh, Chris, the event was awesome. It got so much, whatever, but I want more of you. How do I work with you? I said, well, bingo, I got to create something so you can work with me. So I created a year-long, as I call it, the Get Sugar Honey Iced Tea Done. I don't say Sugar Honey Iced Tea Done, but the GSD Platinum Mastermind program. And I've gotten some amazing results. Some of my students have become bestsellers. Some of them have finally started their companies. Some of them have, spoken on some huge stages. I mean, I'm just so excited and so proud of everything that they've ultimately been able to create. So if there are listeners out there that are interested in that, I walk you through all of that in 3 days. I know we're going to talk about my contact information later, but my website is just chriscooperlive.com, and you get on my mailing list, and I'll be getting you guys some information out specifically about that event if that's something that interests you. But literally, that's how I created that, because people kept asking me for it. And I think that's a true testament. And it was a shift for me because, I'm the anti-procrastination guy. So I was procrastination, which is great. And people are definitely interested in it. But I realized that it was more to it than just the procrastination thing. And then that's how I kind of fell into this, expert space, and helping other people become experts in that space.
I love it, Chris. Thank you for sharing all of that.
No problem.
Okay, so we're heading towards the end of the episode, and I'd like to ask you one simple, well, it's not a simple question,
okay.
Just one question. And the question is, what would be your biggest advice or recommendation to someone who is just starting on their entrepreneur journey, or who is just, thinking of starting something, become an entrepreneur? So what would be that one thing that you would, point out? Maybe it's a personal character trait, maybe it's a business ethic, whatever it is. What would be like the most important advice from you?
I think the biggest thing that if anybody either wants to become an entrepreneur or is an entrepreneur looking to move to the next level or what have you, is that and this is just the biggest thing, never forget this, that you should always be a student first, a teacher second, and a servant always. Student first, teacher second, servant always. And I say that because going back into my original advice of giving people what they ask for, not what you think they need. If you're able to identify what people ultimately want and what they're asking for, that's being a true student. You're asking questions. You're constantly in the process of learning and growing and being challenged consistently as a student. Then once you've gotten the information, teach them. Teach them whatever that information is. I know I'm pushing more of the infopreneur type of world, but, I'm sure you probably have a lot of individuals that like that or are interested in it, So, teach them it. But remember, at the core of everything, you talk about character traits, be a servant. If you authentically serve individuals and you come from a place of service, I assure you, the opportunities are not only limitless, they are absolutely freaking incredible. And you're going to help a lot of people, and you're going to make a whole hell of a lot of money while doing it.
Yeah, there you go. Great advice. Always be a man of value or a woman of value.
That too. Absolutely.
All right, Chris. That's thanks for sharing that. Honestly, I thought you would say something like, well, my biggest advice is stop procrastinating.
No, that too. But that goes along with it. Yeah. I would say GSD, but that's so cliche at this point. But I think that but guess what? If you're authentically a servant and you really want if you really want to make it happen, you will make it happen. Yeah, and remember, totally. It's because those things and those people mean more to you than quote unquote just yourself. And I think that, as I would say, get shit done, stop procrastinating, all that kind of stuff. It's all in there. It's all a part of being a servant. Yep.
Yeah, totally. And I mentioned that on other podcasts with other awesome guests that I had, that sometimes in the past, what happened that I would often get emails from people asking me for, specific advice on, let's say, online marketing or, website optimization, maybe even technical issues with installing WordPress, whatever it is. And sometimes I would not ignore them, but I would just give them a simple answer or direct them to some kind of YouTube video which will help them out. Because, let's say if it's a technical issue, which I'm not really a technical person, and pretty much most of the technical aspects that I learned was from watching YouTube videos and reading tutorials.
Right.
But sometimes I would pick people and I would go into either creating like a 20-minute video with me explaining stuff to them, or writing like 2,000 word reply by email, or getting them on Skype, and no, doing all that for free, because for some reason I felt like some kind of a connection to that person. I would be like, well, they really need my help, and I have a lot to tell them, so I'd rather do it over a Skype conversation than
Right.
And sometimes those people would end up paying me money afterwards. And it's people that would often be broke or just trying to start a business without money. But they would find some money and send me whatever it is, like $50, $100. And I'd be like, what's that? Like, well, your advice was so valuable, and I took your time, and I feel bad for taking your time. So, I thought that your email letter is like, this automated thing, and you would never reply, but you actually did. And it felt so amazing. And that's also when it kind of clicked. I was like, wow, people really appreciate it and value when you, like you said, when you're a servant, when you help them, when you care about them, honestly.
And they can tell the difference. They can tell if you're authentic or if you're not. And and that's one thing that I had to get over too. I was just like you, giving all the time. And I will say this, if I may, when you think about giving as well, you have to understand that because of what you've done from the perspective of investing in yourself, because of the time, effort, energy, resources, everything you've put into mastering your craft, that you deserve to be compensated for your time, your talents, and your abilities. And that was hard for me at first, because I just wanted to, I'm a giver. I just want to give. But guess what? I have 2 little boys that have to eat.
Yep,
I have a lifestyle that I have to maintain. And the more that I'm able, the more that I'm able to effectively, serve individuals, I'm going to need money to do that. And I'm going to need to, to be consistent. And because of what I've invested in me, I deserve to be compensated for my time, my talents, and my abilities. And like I said, that was a major mentality shift for me that I had to embrace and literally own that identity. And I'm glad that you're at a point now, of course, clearly after they were just sending you the little $50 here, $100 here, whatever. Now the people have to really pay for your time, because guess what? What you have is valuable, and people are looking for what you have. And I think that is so critical. So for all you servant leaders that are out there that I know listening, remember, don't forget this part. You deserve to be compensated, and compensated well, for your time, your talents, and your abilities, because you never know how it's going to ultimately affect individuals. And that's exactly what you received through reciprocity of those individuals that were paying you even when you weren't charging.
Yeah, totally. And overcoming that barrier of asking people for money in exchange for information is a hard one. And I think that could be a podcast episode.
It could be
on its own. It could be a book. It could be a series of books.
Right, exactly.
Because it's a hard thing to do.
It is, very much so. But guess what? It's doable. Alex has done it. I've done it. You have tangible examples of individuals in front of you who are able to guide you along that path. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Totally. And I'll give just a little quick advice here for people. When one of the easiest ways that I started asking for money, let's say for some of these things, where I would put affiliate links to some of the products or services that I talk to, like let's say in my blog post, right? And I would tell people, I was like, by the way, here's an affiliate link, and I will earn a commission if you buy it through my link. And I would really appreciate it if you found my post and the information I just gave you valuable. Go ahead and use my link. It's not going to cost you anything extra. And in some cases, you'll even get a discount if you use my affiliate link. However, if you don't, go directly to the website of that service or that product and buy it without using my link. No hurt feelings, whichever you prefer. And, when I started writing that, I noticed kind of a jump in sales. People do actually...
They want you.
They actually do spend more time clicking on your link than... you get what I'm saying. And it happens to me that there's some people that I've been reading and listening to, and whenever I want to buy something online, some kind of service, and I know they're using it, so I would actually go out of my way to look for their affiliate link or to look for their affiliation somehow with the company. So, I make sure that they get some kind of a commission or reward, because I found their stuff so valuable to me that I want them to, get back just a little bit at least.
Right.
But once again, like you said, you have to be authentic. You have to be honest, because people feel that, and they know when you're honest, when you're not.
Exactly, and they're going to be attracted to you for that, for that matter. Absolutely.
There you go. All right, Chris. So before you go, I'd like you to share some more details maybe on how people could get in touch with you. You already mentioned your website, but you could do it once again. And maybe there's some other links or resources or books, whatever you want to, do a shameless plug here.
Okay.
Please
All
do feel
right.
free
I
and
love
tell
it.
us how
I
people
love it.
find more about you.
I'm all about the shameless plugs.
There you go. There you go.
That's right. Well, once again, you can find me at chriscooperlive.com. That's ChrisCooperlive.com. It has all of the links that you need. I do a web TV, a series called Chris Cooper TV. So you'll see links to that on YouTube and all that kind of great stuff. Also, make sure you sign up for my newsletter. So that way you can get all the different updates about all the upcoming things. As I said, I'm really ramping up for this expert industry bootcamp. The website is still kind of in development, but you can still take a peek. It's at eibootcamplive.com. That's eibootcamplive.com, and it has information about my upcoming event for those authors, both experienced and aspiring authors, coaches, trainers, speakers, authors, anybody that wants to basically learn how to monetize your message or turn your passion into profit. My books, both of them are now officially international #1 bestsellers. The first is called Achieve Your Dreams. 26 Quick Keys to Succeed in Life. A direct link is on my website, but of course you can go to Amazon and search for Chris Cooper and Achieve Your Dreams, and it'll pop up. And my second book, the one I think that many individuals that are listening would definitely be interested in, is my Get Done book, How to Stop Quitting and Start Succeeding. Don't worry, I spell the sugar honey iced tea part as SH with a star T, and it's all about how to stop quitting and start succeeding. And it's a great read. I really break down not only those steps that I mentioned today, but I really help you, GSD, as I say, GSD sooner, faster, better, together, and now. And really, I help individuals. If you read that book, you'll be able to make small, subtle changes that produce big, fast, and measurable results. So definitely go out there and get that book and send one to your friend, especially as we get into the holiday season. These are awesome gifts.
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing. But yeah, and also if you want to follow me on social media, on Twitter, I'm at CJCOOP. That's just at CJ Coop on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook. Just do Chris Cooper Live. Don't worry, you'll see my page. It'll show up. Instagram, it's CJ Coop 78. So the same thing, CJCOOP, but except you have a 7 and an 8 at the end of it. And you'll find me. Just look for Chris Cooper Live, and you'll be able to find me. And I would love to serve you. I would love to work with you guys. And like I said, I really do believe. I also host a radio show every Monday on a radio station here based out of Atlanta, but you can listen to it all over, WGJY, called Limitless Radio, where I interview individuals that are really being limitless, because I believe the sky is not the limit, it's only the beginning. So that's all the ways you can get in contact with me. I would love, like I said, love to serve you, love to work with you. And, let's get some sugar honey iced tea done.
Awesome. Love the story, Christopher. Thank you so much for being on the show. I had a blast talking with you, and really awesome information that you've shared today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Extra Paycheck Podcast. As usual, I will be sharing a show notes page at extrapodcast.com/35. This is where you'll be able to find all the links, resources, and other stuff that we've mentioned on today's episode with Chris Cooper. You can subscribe to the Extra Paycheck show directly on iTunes. Go to extrapodcast.com/iTunes. This is where you would also be able to leave a review and a rating for the show, which I will greatly appreciate, and this will help me moving that show forward. So thank you once again for listening, and I'll talk to you next Monday.